Hey guys, this is Solution Podfics, and we're back with another chapter of Birds of a Feather by Howls_Library. This is Chapter 5. Any moment in which Peter wasn't focused on a task, his mind drifted back to home. MJ, Ned. The worst was remembering how he acted with Norman. The strange spell had cast. Being here in Gotham, Aunt May was gone, and it was his fault. He had no one. Peter had been getting somewhat used to living at the Tompkins shelter throughout Gotham. He had thought it would be more of an adjustment, but it kind of felt like he was staying at feast, which ultimately was a double-edged sword for him. He made himself busy by getting to know some of the others staying at the shelter with him. His favorite shelter buddy was this guy named Lars. He was mute and couldn't communicate with Peter very well, but Peter could tell he liked listening to his stories. That, or he had a hard time walking, so he couldn't get up and leave during one of Peter's rants, even if he wanted to. It had been 7 days since Peter's run-in with Connor Kent. He was still running the encounter through his head. The more he thought about it, the more it made him worry. Maybe he's just really, really strong for an average human. Or maybe all humans are just that strong? Peter said to himself out loud inside the bathroom stall of Tompkins. He had just checked back into the original location he started at. Connor Kent looked like a normal teenage boy, but Steve Rogers also looked like a normal man in his early 30s, so that didn't really help his case. The thing is, he noticed a moment of realization on Connor's face when he managed to get out of his grip. They both looked at each other in the eye with worry and concern, and Peter was more so nervous than anything else since he could tell that Connor hadn't even put that much effort into holding him still. Peter assumed it was because Connor didn't want to hurt him since he didn't know anything about Peter or his powers. It was subtle, though. If Peter hadn't tried to get out of it, he wouldn't have noticed the amount of strength holding him still. Connor was probably another young superhero he's going to have to familiarize himself with. He now knew that Connor had a reason to be alarmed about him. This was exactly what Peter wanted to avoid. Maybe he was enhanced. An alien? Mutants probably existed in this place too, and he might have just run into one. I guess he should start saying metahumans, since that's the term Batman referred to them as during the press conference where he stated they were banned in Gotham, during the tape reruns they watched at the shelter. Guess that means Spiderman is on hold for a bit, he whispers to himself in the mirror as he looks at himself. Dang, I should have worked out more, Peter says glumly as he washes his hands. Maybe I could have the sleeper build Connor has, he says to himself as he flexes in the mirror. A man walks in and gives him a weird look. Peter transitions his flex into an awkward salute and gives him a sly smile. Hey Benny, looking good, Peter says, and the man rolls his eyes while muttering under his breath as he makes his way into one of the stalls. Peter sighs and looks back into the mirror. He smacks his hands on his cheeks and gives himself a stern look. Come on, Parker, you got this, he whispers to himself. He walks back towards his bed, thinking about what he needs to do tomorrow. He had been doing a pretty good job avoiding Gwen and Jamie, making sure not to be here when they were volunteering after sneaking a peek at the volunteer sheet. Yet, even though he was avoiding them, it still felt like he was being watched. Whenever he was walking the streets of Gotham, he could sense the presence of one or more figures. His spider sense would go off lightly, not alarming him of danger per se, but more of their presence. The heartbeats from 3 in particular were familiar. Peter had been in Gotham for about a week, and in this time he was able to figure out that he was being stalked by members of the BatFamily. Not only that, but he somewhat uncovered 3 of their secret identities just by matching their heart rhythm to people he's talked to since he's been here. He can't be 100% sure, but he is about 98% sure. He figured out Barbara Gordon was Batgirl first. His spider sense alerted him of Barbara approaching him back at the library when he first arrived in Gotham. From that brief encounter, he had deja vu walking down an alley the other day, when his spider sense went off again. He had stopped, remembering the rhythm to the T. He looked up into the darkness and saw her outline. He wonders if he scared her for staring so long. And then he had to work a bit harder to figure out that Jason was Red Hood. His spider senses only alerted him to Jason when he woke up initially at the library that first day. He had a somewhat similar experience sitting on a rooftop after climbing a fire escape and almost shitting his pants to the sudden alert of his spider sense to a gun firing 3 times. As he looked down in the alleyway below him, he saw a young girl saying thank you to someone he couldn't see, but what he did see was 3 thugs laying incapacitated on the floor. Clean shots, Peter whispered to himself. Whoever shot the gun had a keen eye to basically maim the guys without killing them. That's when his spider senses spiked again as he saw red flash through the corner of his eye. The cow was recognizable even though he only saw it briefly. He thanked his superior vision for him being able to tell it was Red Hood. Now the next one was a bit of a stretch on his part. He could only assume the following about the third figure. For him, Tim Drake being Red Robin was not on his bingo card. It was only a hunch, but Peter liked trusting his gut. It had saved his ass several times, so why not trust it now? The way Red Hood carried himself when Peter saw him in the distance for the first time also helped support Peter's theory. He made sure to make eye contact with him, but Peter was almost sure that it was Tim. He also may or may not have stalked Red Robin around his patrol one night to see if he could get any other evidence. He could guarantee that Red Robin was very skilled in being traceless, and it felt like Peter was going against him in an Olympic game of hide-and-seek. He would have to put a pin in it for now. There were 3 other figures that were stalking him by night. Peter knew that he basically had the whole BatFamily on his tail and that he was on their radar. He didn't really know why as of yet, but assuming the encounters he's had with Barbara, Jason, and Tim is probably a mixture of all the things he could think of. One person he knew wasn't stalking him was Batman himself. Peter could tell that Batman wasn't taking an interest in him currently. He had only seen Batman once since being in Gotham, and it was during a fight he had with Mr. Freeze down in the Cord building. Cool guy, sick gadgets, what's not to like? Peter had said watching Batman turn in Mr. Freeze to the authorities. He somewhat reminded him of Iron Man. Someone else that reminded him of home was Bruce Wayne, although he was a tad less cocky and more composed in press conferences. It appeared to him that Bruce and Tony were cut by the same cloth. Bruce was also an orphan, according to a small documentary at Wayne Industries Peter had sat in on. Messed up parallel universes? Peter suggested to himself. No, I don't have enough evidence to support it, he flopped on the floor near his bed. If only he had a way to access the internet without having to go to the library. The hair on his arm stood a bit. He sat up slowly and rolled into bed while looking through the skylight of the shelter. Someone was watching him right now. He was getting tired of it. He waited a bit, lying in his cot-like bed, looking up at the skylight. Thoughts flung through his head. What if these people could help him? Peter didn't know if the so-called superheroes of this universe had dealt with things that the Avengers had, but at this point, what did he have to lose? He was getting desperate. He knew he could sneak in places and find out more information. But in the end, where would that get him? He knew one slip-up would be the end of him. Time to take action, Peter whispered. Nightwing perched himself on the windowsill of the Tompkins shelter skylight. Night's darkness surrounded him, and he could clearly see into the shelter to get a good view of the place. Peter was basically right below him. It looked like he was getting ready to go to bed. Steph, any updates to the theory board tonight? Dick whispers into his comms. Well, as of now, it's still metahuman, reviewing what Connor said. Super strength is the most definite feature. Barbara still is on the side of night vision due to her encounter in the alley. Damien swears that the kid is hyper-aware of his physical surroundings somehow, Steph says back. Echolocation, maybe? Dick suggests. I don't think he's a dolphin, and please don't tell me you are now suggesting he has bat-themed powers somehow, Steph sighs. No, that is not what Okay, whatever. Has Tim been able to get anything out of Gwen? Dick asks. She claims she doesn't know anything. Not surprised since Tim hasn't really been hitting it off in the ladies' department recently, Steph snorts. I thought that you guys were good, and you know what? Never mind. Okay, so basically, we haven't gotten any further on our Peter scouting in the last 5 days. Great, Dick sighs. Dick, I cannot believe you, Tim suddenly says over the comms. Dick looks up from his Peter post and into the sky as he rolls his eyes at Tim's voice. What did I do this time, Tim? Dick says. I was talking with Bart on the phone and heard Wally in the background talking about a new technique you showed him. So being curious as to what the new technique was you showed him, and not Damien and me, I asked him about it. Little did I know that Wally was referring to a certain genre of techniques, and I quote, I don't think Dick is as open with you as he is with me. Trust me, Dick likes to get very open with me, which immediately made me gag, Tim recounts. Dick chuckles and smirks at the comment. Well, what can I say? I am good at all things I do. When you're older, I can share it with you in con, Dick begins. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's not have this conversation right now. Is that okay? Stephanie interrupts. Dick, report on Peter. How is he? Steph asks. He's fine. He's just chillin'. As Dick looks down for Peter, his eyes widen, seeing that Peter's no longer in his bed. or anywhere in the shelter as far as he can see. Dick, what's wrong? Tim asks. Nothing. Just thought I saw a volunteer in their underwear, Dick says quietly. I'm signing off for a bit. Report back in an hour. Peter was gone. Where was he? Dick surveyed the shelter from corner to corner, but there was no sign of Peter. Are you looking for something? A voice from behind him speaks. Dick isn't super easy to scare, but the sudden voice from behind him made his hair stand on end. He turns quickly with his eskrima sticks extended, prepared to engage. He is met with the outline of a teenager in the darkness. Dick quickly throws down a portable light and is met with chocolate brown eyes. Oh, Dick says softly. It was Peter. His Peter. His son Peter. Technical son, but still his son? Dang, he had good genes. Getting a good look at Peter, he looks like he could also be a gymnast. Lithe and slim, but sturdy at the same time. Dick shook his head. Peter hadn't even flinched at his stick or lights. You're Nightwing, right? Peter asks. Dick looked at Peter up and down. He was wearing a Nightwing pullover and Nightwing sweats. Was his son a fan of his? Dick gave a sheepish smile back at Peter. The one and only, Dick responded. Awesome, Peter replied. There was an awkward pause between them. Dick was curious as to how Peter even got on the roof of the shelter. The fire escape was under repair, and the ladders inside were nowhere near long enough to get on top of the building. Is something wrong? Peter asked him. Oh, no, nothing's wrong, Dick responded quickly. He hoped he didn't look a little nervous. He could stand down the Joker or Bane any day and not let his emotions show. But for some reason, being near Peter was unnerving. Then, why are you up here looking into the shelter? Peter asked. Touché, Peter, touché. Dick had to think quickly. Just doing a nightly patrol on the side of the city, making sure everything is in order, Dick shared. Good thinking on his part. Oh, okay, Peter says quietly. He made his way to the ledge, which made Dick extremely nervous, and sat down. I like sitting up here at night and just looking at the skyline. You can't see this vantage point from the street, so no stray gunshots come my way, Peter shared. Dick couldn't help but frown. Seeing Peter up close and personal made him see that Peter looked so young. Young and broken. It seemed like a light was off in his eyes. Mind if I sit with you? Dick asked. Peter nodded. There was about a minute of silence before Peter spoke again. Can I ask you for a favor, Nightwing? He looked at him with sad eyes. Sure, what's up? Dick asked. Can you tell your family to stop stalking me? Peter responded. Underneath his cowl, Dick's eyes widened. How did Peter know? It's a long story, Peter responded to Dick's lack of response. I don't really feel like explaining, but I know that you know that's what has been going on for the past week. Dick is at a loss for words. He has been pretty frequently lately, which is very new to him. He opens his mouth to say something, but no words come out. I'd rather to be alone and know that I am alone. You know, rather than be alone but knowing that somebody's eyes are on me, Peter spoke softly. You probably know my name, don't you? Peter asked him. Dick didn't know what to say to that. I'll take that as a yes. If you are actually Nightwing and have access to all the things I assume you have access to, being in connection with Batman and the Justice League, well, then the least I can assume is that you know my name, Peter says nonchalantly. Or at least what you can only assume is my name. I bet you've thought about whether I gave a fake name or not, Peter says. Dick just looks at Peter, mesmerized by the kid's deductive reasoning skills. My name is actually Peter Parker, I promise, Peter says, looking up at the skyline. Dick was suddenly very alarmed. He recognized that even though Peter looked just like a normal teenager, they already had evidence to go against that. Now here he was, spewing out all the facts about what he and the Bats had on him. This could be worse than Dick thought. His grips tightened on his eskrima sticks. Peter kept his eyes on the skyline. He gave no evidence that he was going to be hostile, but Dick could never be sure. What do you want? Dick asked him slowly. Why are you here in Gotham? Dick slowly stood up and backed away from Peter. Peter stayed seated but looked back at Nightwing. I need your help. You're scared of me? Peter asked him. There's a difference between being scared and being careful, Dick responded, ears perking at the word help. The boy gave him a look. He looked hurt. Had Dick offended him? Peter looked back at the skyline. I actually come up here because it somewhat reminds me of New York. That's where I'm from. Well, why don't you go back to New York? It's only a few hours from here, Dick says carefully. Peter looked down at his feet, then at the ground below him. "Not this New York," he murmured quietly. Dick lowered his eskrima sticks. He suddenly heard something that calmed his nerves a bit. Peter started to cry. Suddenly, he felt like a major asshole. Dick's heart wrenched for Peter. "I'm not from here," Peter's voice cracked. Dick approached him slowly, and all he could see was a shattered teenager who needed comforting. "What do you mean?" Dick asked him. "I mean, I'm not from here," Peter says with emphasis on here. Dick's eyes softened. Peter's face was wet with tears. He hoped he understood what Peter was saying. He slowly picked up the boy and hugged him. Peter reciprocated and was clinging onto him as he finally broke down. "I want to go home," Peter sobbed. "I want to go home, but I don't have anyone to go home to." After about 15 minutes, Dick finally got somewhat of the bigger picture in bits and pieces from Peter. From the sorcerer who sent him here, the other versions of him, the multiverse splitting apart, his aunt dying, and even being found by Barbara and Jason. Peter made it seem like he practically knew the whole story behind who they were. If he was telling anyone besides Dick, or maybe another member of the BatFamily, they would think Peter was insane. Of course, Dick didn't have any context to this besides the trauma dumping Peter was sharing with him, but he hoped to figure it out. Eventually, Peter stopped crying and just slumped up against Dick's side. Soft shudders and gasps were from sudden jerks of tears happening here and there. Dick thought it was strange at first for Peter to suddenly just dump all this on a vigilante, but he knew Peter was smart just from this one interaction. He assumed that Peter felt he or the BatFamily could help in some way. "Hey Pete, thank you for sharing that with me. I believe you, every last word," Dick shared, ruffling Peter's hair. He takes time for the boy to gather himself. Dick looked off into the skyline. He might regret what he was about to do, but Peter just shared a huge secret with him. "Peter, come with me. I can take you to get help." He looked down at his son. "Peter, I'm going to help you. I promise." Dick looked at him straight in the face as Peter sniffled. "I feel so stupid for crying. I'm sorry," Peter said. "Don't feel stupid. You need to let it out. This is a good thing," Dick reassured. Peter gave him a small smile. "You did a good job at that whole comforting thing. Do you comfort kids and teens often as Nightwing, or do you have kids outside of the suit?" Peter asked. Dick looked down at him. He paused. "Kids?" he asked. "Yeah, I guess I do have a kid," Dick smiled. Alright guys, and that is the end of Chapter 5 of Birds of a Feather by House_Library. I hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you in the next chapter.